I enjoy doing the series, giving out my opinions, dropping random bombshells of hot takes, and just overall doing anything music related that I don't have to try too hard with. Kind of just going with the flow and freestyling it. I find the Lemon Twigs to be a pretty interesting band to talk about, considering how old school oriented they are, but still have so much modern aspect to their music. Taking these old sounds, these old genres, and mixing them around with a more modern friendly aspect of things, kind of making it easier for a more modern listener to get a hold of. I find it pretty interesting, and it's pretty special in my opinion. And their discography is a pretty interesting case. It's not too long of a discog. Anybody can go through and just look at the work for themselves, and kind of discuss whether or not they have a good footing of like old school and whatnot. It's pretty wild to think about too, listening to their music, because it's like you could hear the Beatles within them, and as I go into the tier list, you can hear other influences as well, but other oldie influences as well. But at the same time, it's still kind of they still have their own originality to them, their own original taste that gives them an appeal to some extent, especially on their more recent project. You could hear the evolution within them as time goes on. So let's hop into it. The Lemon Twigs. Is it kind of wild that I'm only choosing like the shorter discographies? I know there's a lot of huge artists out there with much more influence and much more insanely stacked library to get through, which makes more of a lengthy and more discussable, argumentative video. But I don't know. I just want to keep it simple for now. I'm just trying to keep it simple. I'm trying to keep it quick and fun. Don't want to overwhelm myself, because it's already a struggle enough trying to like think of what to say in these videos, and getting these things written out, getting my feelings written out. Cause I suck at freestyle in every way possible. I'm horrible at it. I'm so bad at it. It's crazy. Starting off with their debut project, Do Hollywood. This marks the beginning of Brian and Michael D'Addario's career, and it was quite alright to say the least. Already from the beginning in 2016, it was clear what their intentions were when it came to the craft. These two grasp a heavy hold of old school rock and even bits of doo-wop influence, as if you were listening to oldies on a phonograph. It keeps this near and dear persona of that rich 50s sound that creates a sense of nostalgia, even for those who haven't experienced the time themselves. In a way, these two managed to build a time machine within the craft that keeps this dead style somewhat salvaged. But even their best attempt here isn't anywhere near the peak point it could be at. Although we get these oldie influences, it still has this sense of feeling outdated, as if they haven't really found a footing on how to keep things fresh. By no means would I call the album bad, but it definitely feels like a freshman LP. There's so much for them to work upon. The sound is still in development. The blueprint is set, but the execution is still undergo. At times it feels comforting though. Mainly the track I Want to Prove to You, which plays upon this older doo-wop sound, nothing short of romantic and sweet. Makes you want to get up and dance with Granny. Then there are other times where the songs just come off kind of empty and lackluster, such as Baby Baby and High Low, with its very minimalist approach in production and effortless vocals at times. And finally, there are moments where the songs just feel directionless. Now, I have tracks I enjoy from here, but I only catch myself repeating two, which would be the opener and, more notably, As Long As We're Together, which is in my opinion the most thought out track here, from the solid messaging to the worthwhile chorus build-up to the ear-catching guitar work. It's the one record from this LP that makes me truly feel this connection to their music. Not a bad project, but so much that they could still work upon. If I was to kind of scale it, I'd say C. Moving into their sophomore LP territory with Go to School, our lovable D'Addario brothers become quite the goofballs. I'm no fun killer and will say I don't find myself appalled by this LP like others do. However, I find it to be more tolerable than enjoyable mostly. A track like Rock Dreams has its lines at points which can feel quite disconcerting, enough to the point of technically confusing its listener. Even if being topically on the nose, its goofy writing doesn't exactly make for the best execution. I will say though, the production here does feel much more grand than its predecessor. The atmosphere is complemented with orchestral-esque structuring, giving a prettier look from the outside. This one is a tougher pill to swallow, as it has a much cleaner and shinier polish around the edges. However, once you dig into the center of things, it becomes shaky and fools around too much for its own good. Now, some may put a positive spin on it and feel that the writing is full of character. And yeah, that's a positive way to look at it. But from my experience with this LP, I feel like the shakeups within the lyrics are too much to handle and the listen just becomes nauseating. Instances where I just go, okay, we had something, but then you just have to kill the momentum. Then things are full force again, but oh wait, the sour taste is back. Good news is the slandering has finally come to an end. Bad news, D tier. Now moving on to their junior project, Songs for the General Public. This is an awkward phase, so to speak, that I can't really dig too deep into. Like off rip, the Bob Dylan influence on the first track is just wild. Absolutely bonkers. Not the biggest fan of the opening, but I mean it has heart. As loved as Live in Favor of Tomorrow is, it's never been a favorite of mine. And maybe that stems from its very general aesthetic. I feel like I've heard this track before, you know? Hard to explain, but things just don't come across as original or as exciting as they want it to be. I could make this case for the whole album though. Things just feel a bit stale and in result has an overall okay feel. The brothers don't really change themselves mainly writing wise. The execution and production is pretty strong, however words blur together and I leave each track remembering its synth goodness and just great guitar slash drum framing. This mixing addiction they have where the vocals sound like they were recorded in a hallway, it's a very bold choice, especially for this project in particular. Lots of solid guitar solos scattered that I do quite rock with. They may have taken the LP's title way too seriously though. I'm feeling D tier. I am, however, ready to dig into their senior LP, Everything Harmony. Everything Harmony leads into this more somber approach using slower techniques and soft-spoken vocals. This is pretty much their heart-on-sleeve record that plays at the heartstrings in the moments and leaves a lot of room for your impeding, depressive thoughts. As the title says, we do get, excuse my language, oodles of harmony from these two, and I'm actually content with how things were presented. When Winter Comes Around has the strongest gravitational pull, being the opener and arguably standing tall as the best track and as one of my favorites. Everything Harmony is time consuming and pacing, yet doesn't feel like a task to listen to. Many instrumental breaks that feel worthwhile, and the track list is probably the most consistent out of the entire discography. By this point the aesthetic becomes obvious, the development in their sound is at a peak, and the project overall builds this great atmosphere with a solid foundation that just can't be knocked down. A turning point, truly, for the Dario brothers. See, if I had to be more professional about things, I'd safely put them in B here, but I'm thinking A. Off of personal enjoyment and consistency and just replayability, in my terms, I'm going A. Pushing past everything so far and moving on to their most recent project. We're talking A Dream Is All We Know. Last year, they released their most recent project, The Dream Is All We Know. Solid singles leading up to the release, only giving me higher hopes for what's to come. Definitely the most Beatles-eccentric sound that makes it pretty clear where the influence lies. This LP is a rock-centered piece with flavors of pop here and there that, call me crazy, gives hints of Beach Boys. I'm digging the style and feel like this album went over a lot of heads, which it most likely did. And so in that case, put some respect on their names, please. I'd say this album is about as free-spirited as it gets, with more fun and pep in the vocals and a more upbeat tempo overall on the groove. This is a time machine of a project that, while it does get lost in oldie influence, still maintains that balance with the radical attitude it has going for it. So if I was to be that guy here, I'm going B. Now, I know that seems a bit harsh after how kind I was, but there are still moments of inconsistency in times where the eccentric influence from the oldies don't really feel as heavy-handed as their past songs have on other projects, or maybe they aren't as apparent as some of the higher, tier tracks are off this album. You know, they have their low points. Nothing wrong with that. I think this is as accurate as I can get with the ratings for what they have. I still do see a lot of potential and a lot of greater things that could possibly come from them, as long as they keep on pushing the boundaries of their creativity, finding more influence and learning how to turn it into something, much more refreshing and much more expansive than what we could have possibly imagined. But I hope you guys do check them out.